Everybody, I'm back with another video. This one's going to be very sobering and very eye-opening, I hope, for you. The Sign of Jonah. What was Yahushua telling us? Scripture scholars have tried for centuries to figure out what Yahushua meant about the Sign of Jonah. To see it clearly, we need Yahuwah's eyes. You get that when you love Yahuwah and you study His Word and you obey His laws. And you learn some things about His Word. Jeremiah 16:19 tells us, "O Yahuwah, my strength and my fortress, and my refuge in the day of affliction, the nations shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, Our fathers have inherited only lies, vanity, and there is no profit in them." So we know right there that when we get to the end where we're at right now, that there's going to be a lot of lies and a lot of things that hadn't been told to you. And then we see in Isaiah 43:27, "Your first fathers sinned, and your interpreters have transgressed against me." So we know that there'll be scriptural changes, and we'll have to sift through these things and figure them out. But with Yahuwah's help, when you love Him and you obey Him, He'll help you see it. The scholars have attempted to understand the Messiah's words, but have fallen short because they fail to see major translation change in the scriptures. Matthew 16:1-4. "And the Pharisees and the Sadducees came, and to test him, they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. He answered them, When it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning it will be a stormy day today, for the sky is red and threatening. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah." So He left them and departed. And that's the words He gave us about the end times and when it was going to be. So what is He telling us? I'm going to try to attempt to tell you. Matthew 12:39. "But He answered them, An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah." And then we see in 12:40, "For just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." Very interesting statement. Now, most scholars take that to mean the grave, but it's not. Jonah flees the presence of Yahuwah. Jonah 1. I'm going to give you some background here so you can see some things first. "Now the word of Yahuwah came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me." But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish with the presence of Yahuwah. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of Yahuwah. But Yahuwah hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, and the ship threatened to break up. The mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God. They hurled the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship, and had laid down and was fast asleep. So the captain came and said to him, What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, call out for your God. Perhaps the God will give us a thought to us that we may not perish." And then Jonah is thrown into the sea. "And they said to one another, Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation, and where did you come from? What is your country, and what people are you? And he said to them, I'm a Hebrew, and I fear Yahuwah, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Then the men were exceedingly afraid, and said to him, What is this that you have done? For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of Yahuwah, because he had told them. Then they said to him, What shall we do with you, that the sea may quiet down for us? For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. And he said to them, Pick me up and hurl me into the sea, and the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, and they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous against them. Therefore they called out to Yahuwah, O Yahuwah, let us not perish for this man's life, and they lay on the innocent blood for you, O Yahuwah. Have done as it pleased you. So they picked up Jonah, and they hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. And the men feared Yahuwah exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to Yahuwah and made vows. And a great fish swallows Jonah. And Yahuwah appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Very interesting story. So he was running from Yahuwah, because he didn't want to do what Yahuwah wanted him to do. And he causes a tempest of a storm to come up and nearly drowned everybody. And he's thrown into the ocean, and then he's swallowed by a huge fish. And he's there for 3 days and 3 nights. That's the gist of the story. Jonah's prayer. Jonah 2. Then Jonah prayed to Yahuwah, his Elohim, from the belly of the fish, saying, I called out to Yahuwah out of my distress, and he answered me, out of the belly of Saul. It's not Sheol. I'm going to explain this. I cried, and you heard my voice. For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood around me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight. Yet I shall again look upon your holy temple. The waters closed in over me to take my life. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. At the roots of the mountains, I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought up my life from the pit, O Yahuwah, my Elohim. When my life was failing away, I remembered Yahuwah, and my prayers came to you, into your holy temple. Those who pay regard to vain idols forsake their hope for steadfast love. But I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed I will pay. Salvation belongs to Yahuwah. And Yahuwah spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah up upon the dry land. Now, when you look at the word Saul and Sheol in ancient Hebrew, what do you see? It's pretty amazing. You see the same identical word. This is where your translators have messed up. There are 2 words that are used for Saul and Sheol. And one of them is actually, I think, intended to be a place, because it deals with Sheol's tent or his house. And the other one deals with Saul. So there's Saul and Saul's house. They're not really Sheol. But when they added the vowel points in 70 AD, they split this word with 1 dot into 2 words and made 2 words out of it. And they don't even use either one of these words. In many cases, they use grave and other words, hell and grave, and it doesn't mean either one of those. But this was done about the same time the temple was destroyed. And I'm going to tell you right now, guys, the tribulation happened. It ended in 73 AD. The temple's been defiled, and all the great tribulation stuff has happened, and you're in the wrath now. You're not in the tribulation, and the tribulation's not about to start. For a long time I thought, well, maybe we're already in the tribulation, you know. But once I saw this, it's like, oh man, we're past that. What happened, you know? So I had to go back and really dig, and this is what I found. Ezekiel 28:2 tells you, Son of man, say to the prince of Tyrus, Thus says Master Yahuwah, because your heart is lifted up, and you say, I am El, I sit in the seat of Elohim, in the heart of the seas, whereas you are a man and not El, though you set your heart as the heart of Elohim. So Saul set his heart as the heart of Elohim and tried to be like Elohim. It's kind of like when he calls himself Father in some of the verses, and Yahushua told us, call no man Father because you have one Father in heaven. It's the same thing. He was trying to play that role, and he's not. He was a man. In case somebody is actually seeing this for one of my first videos of mine, I wanted to add some background here. You might want to watch my video on the meaning of Sheol, because I go 3 hours in depth into why this was done and how it was done, and the words are actually the same, that it means Saul or Saul's house, not grave or hell. But I wanted to show this interlineary just in case people are watching this for the first time, so they can pause it and look at it. And you'll also notice the Strong's numbers. They give it 2 separate Strong number, even though it's the same word. Now, the Isaiah scroll that they found in Qumran, I think it was like 1948, about the time Israel became a nation, also proves this out, that the scriptures were written in ancient Hebrew, not with vowel points. So this was done deliberate. Oh, I forgot I put this in here, but I did. I went ahead and put the Dead Sea Scroll, Isaiah scroll here for you. And I was wrong on the date. It's 1947. I was 1 year off. But you can look here and see there's no vowel points. This was totally ancient Hebrew. Out of the belly of Saul, not Sheol. And I put the words over here so you could see what grave is in ancient Hebrew and what hell is. And then look at Saul and Sheol, and they're identical. He said, Jonah prayed to Yahuwah, his Elohim, from the belly of the fish, saying, I called out to Yahuwah out of my distress, and he answered, out of the belly of Saul I cried, and you heard my voice. It's like right now, all of Christianity is sitting in the belly of the big fish. And these are very important, because you need to cry out. You need to say, help me find the way, because I'm stuck in the belly and I won't get out unless you help me, Father. I'm sorry, but this is the reality we find ourselves in. Matthew 13:13. Therefore speak I to them in parables, because they see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. Yahushua is taking you back to Isaiah. For those that aren't familiar, he activated the Isaiah scroll in Luke 4. If you want to go back and read it, he unrolled the scroll and he said, today in your hearing, this scripture is fulfilled. And when you read the book of Isaiah, and we know what we have is correct because we have the ancient Isaiah scroll that came out of the cave. So we know it's correct. But when you read that, you will see all these things taking place in a pattern exactly as he said. I mean, down to John, paving the way for him, make way for the highway of Yahuwah. I mean, all of it. Isaiah, we're living out the Isaiah scroll. Psalm 6:5. In Psalm 6:5, we see Saul translated as grave. Instead of it in the grave, it would have been more appropriately rendered in Saul. When you remove the bet, which means in, the word you have left is Saul in Paleo Hebrew and Ancient Hebrew. Now, if you look at the little picture I've got here, and bet tells you all letters in Hebrew have meaning. And I don't care what any scholar tells you they do. They did from the very beginning. The bet is a tent or a house. So what he's saying here is, in death there's no remembrance of you, and in Saul's house or family, who shall he acclaim to you? This is just total mistranslation. Because what you have is, this is what you have in your Bibles probably. For in death there is no remembrance of thee, and in the grave who shall give thee thanks? It doesn't even make sense. I mean, it's talking about a person. And if you notice in the interlineary, they even got the pronoun he. I mean, it's not the grave. It's not a place. It's a person. Or it's his house. Psalm 6 in context. Yahuwah, do not rebuke me in your displeasure, nor discipline me in your wrath. Show favor to me, O Yahuwah, for I am fading away. O Yahuwah, heal me, for my bones have been troubled, and my being has been greatly troubled. And you, O Yahuwah, till when? Return, O Yahuwah, and rescue my life. O save me your loving commitment, for your loving commitment's sake. For in death there is no remembrance of you. Who gives you thanks in Saul's house? I have grown weary with my groaning. Every night I flood my bed. I drench my couch with tears. My eyes have grown dim because of grief. It grows old because of my adversaries. Depart from me, all workers of wickedness. For Yahuwah has heard the voice of my weeping. Yahuwah has heard my pleading. Yahuwah receives my prayer. Let my enemies be ashamed and greatly troubled. They turn back suddenly ashamed. And this is exactly, Yahushua takes you to this psalm when he said, then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. Everything that comes out of Yahushua's mouth is important and takes you back to the Old Testament. If you hadn't figured that out, you need to really do word searches and look and see, where is he taking me with this, what he's saying? Because he's taking you to tell you something specific every time he says something. For those that are watched most of my videos, I'm not going to repeat all of the Sheol video. I'm just doing a little bit of refresher and a few of these so the people that are new watching this that haven't seen the other video will kind of get an idea of what has happened. I'm going to look at Psalm 9:17 now. The wicked shall be turned into hell, and the nations that forget God. That's what your King James has. But this is how it should read. The wicked ones shall be turned to their leader, Saul, and the nations will forget Elohim. Now, how do I know this? The subject root of this word is Saul, not hell. Hell in Hebrew is Gehinnom, not Sheol. So we have two separate different words. And if you look down in the interlinear, even though they have the dot system, they still got Saul in there. And yet they've translated it into hell. This is what has happened over and over and over. And your Lamed and your Hay, this tells you, behold, look at this word. Take a look at it, is what it's saying. It's the man with his arms raised up. When you see that, it says, reveal something to me. Hey, look. So when you're looking at the paleo, it tells you a whole lot. Then the Lamed is a little shepherd staff. It tells you this person is a leader, that they're not just a regular person. So you're talking about, hey, reveal this leader to me. Who is this? And so when you take it down all the way back, you go from ancient and then go into the Paleo, you really even see even more than what you're going to see just in the ancient Hebrew. And here it is in context. Be gracious to me, O Yahuwah. See my affliction from those who hate me, O you who lift me up to the gates of death, that I may recount all your praises, that in the gates of the daughter of Zion I may rejoice in your salvation. The nations have sunk into the pit that they made. In the net they hid. Their own foot has been caught. Yahuwah has made himself known. He has executed judgment. The wicked are snared in the work of their own hands. The wicked shall return to their leader Saul, and the nations will forget Elohim. For the needy shall not always be forgotten, and the hope of the poor shall not perish forever. Arise, O Yahuwah, let not man prevail. Let the nations be judged before you. Put them in fear, O Yahuwah, let the nations know they are but men. Shelah. So he's telling you right there, they're going to follow Saul, and they're going to forget Elohim. And it's exactly what they did. Habakkuk 2:5. Your King James will have, yea also, because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home or enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth upon him all people. Well, hell in Hebrew is Genomi, not Sheol. So it should read, moreover, wine is a traitor, an arrogant man, who is never at rest. His greed is as wide as Saul. Like death, he has never enough. He gathers for himself all nations and collects his own all people. Collects as his own all people. So you can see here that even in the interlineary, you've got Saul. And then they transfer it down as an unseen or as hell, which it is not. Here it is in context. I stand at my watch and station myself at the watchtower and wait to see what he will say to me and what to answer when I am reproved. And Yahuwah answered me and said, write the vision, inscribe it on the tablets, so he who reads it runs. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, and it speaks of the end and does not lie. If it lingers, wait for it shall certainly come. It shall not delay. See, he whose being is not upright in him is puffed up, but the righteous one by his steadfastness, and also because wine betrays him, a proud man, and he does not stay at home. Who enlarges his desire like Saul, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathers unto him all nations, and heaps unto him all people? Shall not all these lift up a proverb against him, and a mocking riddle against him, and say, woe to him who increases what is not his? Till when is he to load on himself so many pledges? Do not your creditors rise up suddenly, and those who make you tremble wake up and be plundered? Because you have plundered many nations, all the remnant of the people shall plunder you, because of men's blood and doing violence in the land for them, to the city and to all who dwell in it. And if that doesn't speak volumes to you, because it tells you it's for the end, and that he enlarges his desire, and he's as death, and he's not satisfied, and he gathers all the nations to him. Now, John 5:43 told us, I come in my Father's name, and ye receive me not. Another shall come in his own name, him ye will receive. I'd hate to know how many thousands of times I've seen on Facebook in Christian groups. But Paul said, somebody will try to say something that Yahushua says, and the next thing out of somebody else's mouth is, but Paul said. But Paul said. I've heard that like a Polly parrot for years now, and it's true. People are following Paul. They don't even realize they're doing it, but they are. Proverbs 1:8. And this one I just kind of didn't do the whole interlinear. I just was going to read it to you. My son, hear your father's instructions, and do not forsake the Torah of your mother. For they shall be an ornament of grace to your head, and a necklace for your neck. My son, if sinners lure you, do not be willing. If they say, walk with us, let us lie in wait for blood. Let us secretly lurk for innocence without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as Saul, and whole as those who go down in the pit. We shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our house with spoil. Let your lot fall among us. One purse shall be to all of us. My son, do not walk in the ways of them. Hold back your foot from their path. For their feet run to the evil, and they hasten to shed blood. For in vain the net is spread, in sight of every owner of the wing. And they lie in wait for their own blood, and they lurk secretly for their own souls. So are the ways of everyone who gets unjust gain. It takes away its owner's soul. Interesting. I mean, he's talking about the Torah and not leaving the Torah. And your Bible may say law, but when the actual word in Hebrew is the Torah. So it's like people are being swallowed up alive by Saul or Paul, whichever you want to call him, because he never changed his name. I'm sorry, but he didn't. Because Acts tells you, it says Paul, also known as Saul. He had two different names. Psalm 18. Yahuwah is my rock, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And that is a big statement, because yes, it will. A psalm of David to the servant of Yahuwah, who addressed the words of the song of Yahuwah on the day when Yahuwah delivered him from the hands of the enemy, from the hand of Saul, he said. And you can look that in the interlineary, because there it did translate Saul, but it's the same word. I love you, Yahuwah, my strength. Yahuwah is my rock and my fortress, my deliverer, my Elohim, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon Yahuwah, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me, the torrents of destruction assailed me, the cords of Saul entangled me, and the snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called on Yahuwah. To my Elohim I cried for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. Now they have the same word in the first sentence up there, translated as Saul. And the second time they did it, they had it as cords of death in the King James. But it's not. It's the same word. The earth reeled and rocked, and the foundation also of the mountains trembled and quaked, because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils, and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew, and came swiftly on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering and his canopy around him, thick clouds dark with water. Out of the brightness before him hailstones and coals of fire broke through the clouds. Yahuwah also thundered in heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice, hailstones and coal of fire. He sent his arrows and shattered them. He flashed forth lightning and routed them. The channels of the sea were seen. The foundations of the world were laid bare. At your rebuke, O Yahuwah, at the blast of your breath of your nostrils, he sent From on high, he took me. He drew me out of the many waters. And that's what he'll do for you if you ask him. He'll draw you out of the many waters of the sea of people and into his house. You rescued me from the strong enemy, from those who hated me, and they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but Yahuwah was my support. He brought me out of the broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. Yahuwah dealt with me according to my righteousness. According to my cleanness of my hands, he rewarded me. For I have kept the ways of Yahuwah, and have not wickedly departed from Elohim. For all his rules were before me, and his statutes, and I did not put them away from me. I was blameless before him, and I kept myself from guilt. So Yahuwah has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness of my hands, and in his sight. With the merciful you shown yourself merciful, and the blameless man you show yourself blameless, and the purified you show yourself pure, and the crooked you make yourself seem tortuous. For you save a humble people, but the haughty eyes you will bring down. For it is you who light my lamp, Yahuwah. My Elohim lightens my darkness. For you I can run up against a troop, and my Elohim I can leap over a wall. This Elohim, his way is perfect. The word of Yahuwah proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. Just think about all that's said in that psalm. There's a lot. But his word proves true. If you study it, he'll show you the truth. Or who is Elohim but Yahuwah? Who is a rock except Elohim? The Elohim who equipped me with strength and made my way blameless. He made my feet like the feet of a deer, and set me securely on the heights. He trains my hands for war, so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and the right hand supported me, and your gentleness has made me great. You gave a wide place for my steps under me, and my feet did not slip. I pursued my enemies, and overtook them, and did not turn back till they were consumed. I thrust them through, so that they were not able to rise. They fell under my feet. For you equipped me with strength for battle, and you made those who rise against me sink under me. You made my enemies turn their backs to me, and those who hated me I destroyed. They cried for help, but there was none to save. They cried for Yahuwah, but he did not answer them. I beat them fine as dust before the wind. I cast them out like the mire of the streets. He speaks to us in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. Yahuwah is your rock. There is no other rock. Peter's not the rock. Yahuwah is your rock. You delivered me from the strife of the people. You made me the head of nations. People whom I had not known served me. As soon as they heard me, they obeyed me. Foreigners came cringing to me. Foreigners lost heart and came trembling out of the fortresses. Yahuwah lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted me, the Elohim of my salvation, the Elohim who gave me vengeance and subdued people under me, who rescued me from the enemies. Yes, you exalted me above those who rose against me. You delivered me from the man of violence. For this I will praise you, O Yahuwah, among the nations, and sing to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king, and shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David his offspring, forever. Yahuwah saved us from the man of violence. By hearing this, what I'm telling you today, You are saved from the man of violence. Paul is a double-minded, speak out of both sides of his mouth man. And his teachings are not Yahuwah's. He's the man of violence. Okay, now we're going to shift gears here a little bit because I want to talk about the heart of the earth. Since I've already told y'all that, so much about this about the 3 days of Sheol, or Saul, in the belly of the fish. Mark 7:17 through 19. And I used the Young's literal translation for this. And when he entered into the house with the multitude, his disciples were questioning him about a simile, and he said to them, So also ye without understanding, do ye not perceive that nothing from without entering into a man is able to defile him, because it doth not enter into his heart, but into his belly, and into the drain it doth go out, purifying all the meats. This is not about food. This is about the heart. And your heart is where, it's cardia in Greek, and the heart is your thoughts, your feelings. It means a man's mind, his will, his understanding. So when Yahushua tells you he's in the heart of the earth for 3 days, what does that tell you? He's in our minds, in the middle of the earth, working. The Hebrew equivalent to cardia is lib, and it means inner man, his mind, his heart, his will, his understanding. Esau had a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him, and Esau determined in his heart, his inner man, or his will, the days of mourning for my father are approaching, then I will kill my brother Jacob. His heart was evil. His inner man and his will was intent on murder. That's in Genesis 27:41. Most believers have assumed the heart of the earth refers to being physically buried. However, this is too limited an explanation. Scripture refers to the earth as a human race, or more specifically, the human heart. So he's telling you that he is going to be working in the heart of man, or the heart of the earth. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? That's what Jeremiah tells us in 17:9. Then Yahuwah saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of his thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And that's Genesis 6:5. Everything goes back to the beginning. Yahuwah tells you the end from the beginning. So what was Yahushua speaking of the 3-day events? It's not 3 days in the grave. It was 3 days of events. Day 1, suffering at the hands of elders. Day 2, death. Day 3, resurrection. And I'm going to show you some slides where that's mapped out with scripture, so you know that I'm telling you the truth. Because I know you've been told that he was in the grave 3 days and 3 nights. He was not. Matthew 16:21. From that time on, Yahushua began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hand of the elders, chief priests, and experts of the law, and be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised. They will kill him, and on the 3rd day he will be raised. And they became greatly distressed, and will turn him over to the heathens to be mocked and flogged and severely and crucified. Yet on the 3rd day he will be raised. Luke 24:7. That the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, be crucified, and on the 3rd day rise again. But we had hoped that there was one who was going to redeem Israel. Not only this, but is this now the 3rd day since these things happened? And they said to them, Thus it stands written that Christ would suffer, would rise from the dead on the 3rd day. It's a sequence of events, not 3 days and 3 nights in the grave. And people have tried to make that fit on a weekend, to a Sunday, to a Saturday, for forever. And I finally just took all the scriptures and mapped it out, and it's 3 days events, not 3 days in the grave. His 3 days are in the heart of the earth, not a grave. Okay, this is some of the mapping. Yahushua's death was on the 14th day of Abib. On the Passover, they rushed to get him in the tomb because the Sabbath was starting. And you see that in John 19:14. Now, it was the day of preparation of the Passover, and it was about the 6th hour. And he said to the Jews, "Behold your king." And then you see in Mark 15:42, and when evening, and that's G3796, had come, since it was the day of preparation, that is the day before the Sabbath. So it's telling you right there that it's the day before the Sabbath. And Mark 15:43, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who had also himself looking for the kingdom of God, took courage and went to Pilate and asked for the body of Yahushua. Now, evening is not nighttime. When you look at Thayer's definition, it is either from 3 to 6 o'clock p.m., from 6 o'clock p.m. to the beginning of night. So it is the time right before darkness. Now, when we look at Luke 24:1-2, it tells us when they found him not in the tomb. But on the day 1 of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb bringing the spices they had prepared, and they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. And we see this again in Mark 16:1. And when the Sabbath was passed, from Magdala and Miriam, the mother of Jacob, and Shalomah brought spices to go in to anoint him. Okay, so they hurried to get him into the tomb before the Sabbath. I want you to think about this. And they were rushing to get him in there before the Sabbath, so they had to do it before 6 p.m. And that's what the definition of Thayer's tells you. Because Sabbath was coming, and they held off on anointing his body. And then they went on day 1 of the week, which would be the day after the Sabbath, at early dawn, to bring the spices and prepare his body. And he had already was out of the grave. So there is no way he was in the grave 3 days and 3 nights. Now, you can study this out if you want to, but I'm telling you the truth. I went through all of the scriptures, and it's like he was not in there 3 days and 3 nights. Okay, here is Mark's account. When evening had come, because it was preparation day that day, the day before the Sabbath. See, so there's the day before the Sabbath, preparation day for the Sabbath. That's the day he died. And when the Sabbath was passed, Miriam and Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jacob, and Shalomah brought spices to go in and anoint him. And very early on day 1 of the week, they came to the tomb when the sun had risen. And having risen early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Miriam from Magdalene, with whom he had cast out 7 demons. So Mark is telling you the same thing. Mark's account is the same as the other account. Okay, here's John's account. Therefore, since it was preparation day, that the body should not remain on the stake on the Sabbath, for the Sabbath was a high one. Now we're given another piece of information. So this Sabbath was actually a high Sabbath. The Judeans asked Pilate to have his legs broken, that he could be taken away, but they didn't do it because he had already expired. And then in John 21, we see, and on day 1 of the week, Mary from Magdalene came early to the tomb while it was still dark, and saw the stone had been removed from the tomb, and he was out of the tomb. He was not in there 3 days. Here's Luke's account. And Luke is very detailed. And it was preparation day, and the Sabbath was approaching. So he's even letting you know the Sabbath was coming up, so they were hurrying. And the women who had come from him from Galilee followed after, and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. And having returned, they prepared spices and perfumes, and they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. So they didn't go on the Sabbath. Put him in the tomb before dark on the day before the Sabbath. Then they rested on the Sabbath, and then on day 1 of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, bringing the spices they had prepared, and they found the stone was rolled away. And they entered, and they did not find the body of Master Yahushua. So this is telling you, there was no 3 days in the grave. Big shock for everybody. Okay, after 2 days, he'll revive us, though we find out when we go to the prophets. It says, we read in Hosea 5:15 through 6:3. I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offense. Seek my face in their affliction. They will seek me early. And they shall say, come and let us return to Yahuwah, for he hath torn and he will heal us. He hath smitten and he will bind us. After 2 days he will revive us, and in the 3rd day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. So you know this is talking about the end, because we're going to live in his sight. So after 2,000 years of false doctrines, we'll be revived. Pretty interesting. A key phrase in this passage that will help us in our search for the truth of Elohim's word. Note, example, I will go and return to my place. This tells you that this prophecy will be fulfilled after the resurrection and ascension of Yahushua. 2 Kings 25. Turn again and tell Hezekiah, the captain of my people, thus says Yahuwah, the Elohim of David, thy father, I have heard thy prayer. I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will heal thee, and the 3rd day thou shalt go up to the house of Yahuwah. And Exodus even foreshadows this. Exodus 19:11. And be ready for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day Yahuwah will come down from Mount Sinai in the sight of all people. Now, what did he tell us? I'm just going to put a little side note in here so you can think, oh my gosh, you know, in Psalms we're told a day to Yahuwah is like 1,000 years, so we're on day 2 right now to be revived. So he could come any time. And he's going to be living with us on day 3, and in our, face to face, in our sight. Well, he said the time would be shortened, which means he could come any time. So guys, be ready. I know you've received a lot of lies. But you're not in the tribulation. The tribulation happened when the Romans sacked Jerusalem. You're now in the wrath. You're in the 3-day wrath. I know this is probably going to sound weird, and it's not something you've even contemplated, but it's true. In the heart of the earth, Yahushua was trying to tell them he would be dealing with the hearts of all humankind for 3 days. Not a physical burial of 3 days long. Yahushua had already shown that he could raise somebody after being dead for 4 days. Yahushua had already demonstrated he has control over life and death. It was not about that. It was about his wrath. Revelation 17:17. For Elohim hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and to give the kingdom unto the beast, until the words of Elohim shall be fulfilled. Jeremiah 23:20. The anger of Yahuwah will not turn back, until he has executed and accomplished the intents of his heart. in the latter day you will understand clearly. So I hope you understand clearly now where we're at. And I hope you will spread this far and wide, because it needs to go out there. People need to be ready. Joshua 23:12 echoes about this. But if you would turn back at all and cling to the remnant of these nations, these that remain among you, and intermarry with them, and go in with them, and they to you, know for certain that Yahuwah your Elohim shall no longer drive these nations out before you, and Yahuwah your Elohim has given you. And see, this day I am going the way of all the earth. This is a foreshadow. And you shall know in all your hearts, in all your beings, that not one word has failed of all the good words that Yahuwah your Elohim has spoke concerning you. All of it has come to you, and not one word of them has failed. And it shall be that every good word has come upon you, which Yahuwah your Elohim promised you. Yahuwah does bring upon you every evil word, until he has destroyed you from this good land, which Yahuwah your Elohim has given you. And when you transgress the covenant of Yahuwah your Elohim, which he commanded you, and shall go and serve other mighty ones, and bow down to them, the displeasure of Yahuwah shall burn against you, and you shall perish quickly from the good land which he's given you. If people do not see this, they will perish. You have to understand, he's gone the way of all the earth right now. That's where he's at. Everybody needs to be repenting, calling out to him, saying, please forgive us. Because I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I was following the Pauline doctrine. And it's not from Yahuwah. Isaiah 10:23. For the Master Yahuwah of hosts is making a complete end, as decided, in the midst of all the earth. That's as clear as it gets. He activated the Isaiah scroll, and that's what he's doing right now. He is making a complete end, as decided, in the midst of all the earth. And midst is H731. It means among, inner parts, middle, inward part, physical sense, as a seat of thought and emotion, as a faculty of thought and emotion. That's from Brown Driver Briggs. And from Strong's it says properly the nearest part, that is, the center, whether literally or figuratively, the bowels of, the heart, the inward part, the midst of, therein, within. He's in the midst of the earth working his wrath right now. Love of Yahuwah for us all. Prophecy fulfilled. And see, this day I am going the way of all the earth. And you know, in all your hearts, in all your beings, not one word has failed. And all good words which Yahuwah your Elohim spoke concerning you, all of it has come to pass to you, and not one word of them has failed. The word for earth in Greek is G, meaning contracted from the primary word soil, by extension a region or a solid part of the whole of the terrace of the globe, like the country, the earth, the ground, the land, the world. The New Testament believes the original Hebrew and the Hebrew equivalent is Adama, which is the root of Adam, and this prophecy was dealing with the hearts of the man, not his burial. Adama is soil, country, earth, ground, husbandry, his land. Adam is to show blood in the face, that is, to flush or turn rosy, to be dyed, to be red, ruddy. Man that came from the soil in Genesis, Yahushua, is referred as the Son of Man. Using the same term, Yahushua is saying for 3 days he's going himself for us. He's going to call out to his remnant. And if you're one of his remnants, you will hear this message. Matthew 13:13. Therefore speak I to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. All parables, he's telling you, all the parables of Isaiah are fulfilled in those parables. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have been closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. Every time you study a parable of his, where does it take you in Isaiah? Ask yourself that question. Study it out, and you'll see the answers you need for right now, because we're living the prophecy of Isaiah. The days of Noah have come. Jeremiah 23:19-21. Behold, the storm of Yahuwah. Wrath has gone forth, a whirling tempest. It will burst upon the heads of the wicked. The anger of Yahuwah will not turn back until he has executed and accomplished his intents of his heart. In the latter days you'll understand it clearly. I did not send these prophets, yet they ran. I did not speak to them, yet they prophesied. That's what's been happening since the very start. They took off with Paul, and they listened to Paul, and now they listen to every Pauline pastor there is. He didn't send them. This is his wrath. As in the days of Noah is literal. In Genesis 6:17 we're told, For behold, I bring a flood on the waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which there breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on earth shall die. Matthew 24:37-39. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as on those days before the flood they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. People are unaware. They're in the belly of the fish being swept away right now, and they don't even know it. Revelation 17:17. For Elohim hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give the kingdom unto the beast, until the words of Elohim shall be fulfilled. So you've been given to the beast. So you need to cry out to Yahuwah. Jeremiah 23:20. The anger of Yahuwah will not turn back until he has executed and accomplished the intents of his heart. In the latter days, you will understand it clearly. I hope you understand it now. I have a clear understanding finally, and it's scary. But I hope I have conveyed it enough to show it to you. We're drowning in lies and deception. O Yahuwah, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. The nations shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, Our fathers have inherited only lies, vanity, and there is no profit in them. The saddest thing of all is those who call themselves pastors have not studied out the scriptures and correctly relayed the facts to the people. We have billions that probably have perished due to the incorrect information being given to them. Yahuwah is the ultimate judge. I'm not sitting as judge for anyone. I'm merely going by what I'm reading in the Old Testament and the prophets and Yahushua's word. I pray this information has helped you to see what course of action you need to make in your life to please Yahuwah, our Father. Pray for the nations. Psalm 138:3. On the day I called, you answered me, and my strength and my soul was increased. If this video doesn't upset you, then your heart needs to be checked. I am sorrowful that people do not realize they are following the actual anti-Messiah. We have to pray for all of them and try to wake them up because we're running out of time. Go back to the forgotten way. Listen to Jeremiah 6:16. Thus says Yahuwah, stand in the ways and see and ask for the old paths, where the good way is, and walk in it and find rest for yourselves. I hope this video has blessed you and that you understand the message. May Elohim bless you and keep you. May Elohim make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Elohim lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. Shalom, everybody.